G'day, g'day, how you going? What do you know? Don't strike a light. G'day, g'day, and how you going? Just say g'day, 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 and you'll be right.
Now we come to the portion of the service before we do our Bible study that we address some end times news and trends that are happening as it relates to Bible prophecy. A couple interesting items, and one is concerning Bible prophecy. The other one is just interesting other information. Russian warplanes bomb ISIS position as Damascus pushes forward to Deir. This came out of Reuters, where Russian Defense Ministry has released footage of airstrikes targeting Islamic State forces in the government of Deir. The bombings are being conducted to help Syrian forces break through the blockade of the provincial capital. So you can see more of this development of the Russians in Syria, the control over the Middle East, and also, of course, as Damascus is going to be front and center as Isaiah 17 talks about the destruction there. We're going to see more destruction taking place in the weeks, months to come. So it's just a matter of time to see that fulfillment of Bible prophecy. We also see the Ezekiel 38 scenario coming closer and closer together as well. Some other items on world news, just looking at the damage and some of the staggering numbers to help put the Hurricane Harvey catastrophe into perspective. There's an article that came out of the Huffington Post, and where it talked about the different components of this and the different numbers. For example, there's 27 trillion estimated gallons of rain that was dropped over Texas and Louisiana over a period of 6 days. It's nearly impossible to imagine the volume of water that enormous, but to try to give it some scope, according to one news sources, they said that they could fill the Houston Astrodome some 85,000 times. Another local ABC affiliate calculated that you could supply New York City for more than 5 decades with that much water. And also another San Francisco CBS affiliate said just half of the total rainfall could end the California's state's drought in just 3 days. Some other interesting numbers. There's 35 fatalities that were confirmed to the date, so the death tolls continue to rise over the past several days as well. And there was 51.88 inches of rainfall measured by a gauge there as well in Texas. And so this is the greatest amount of rainfall over land for a single storm in U.S. history. And there was an interesting little image about this gal or whoever's on this picture that's 64 inches, which is 5'4", and the water would be going up to the shoulder heights. Hurricane Katrina was about knee deep. It was about 17 inches. And Superstorm Sandy is about 7 inches, which is just above the ankles. So you can see how much water there was that came down at that period of time. They've also said about 34,575 number of people forced out of their homes and currently in shelters in the state of Texas in 239 different facilities. Another event is, or numbers, is 1 in 1,000 is the kind of statistics of the flood event, meaning that it's extraordinarily rare for this to ever take place. It's a 99.9% of the time such an event will never happen any given year, but it happened. There's also another interesting number, between 30 to 40,000 estimate homes that have been destroyed due to the impact of this. But there's other numbers that have confirmed that it's over 100,000 homes were affected by this hurricane and subsequent flooding. So the people there in Houston need our prayers. They need our support. They need help. and there's many different places that you can go to support them or go on a disaster relief team to help relieve the people there or whatever else God puts on your heart to do. But it is tragic to see this taking place and just to see so many homes and lives ruined through this. So keep the people of Houston up in prayer. On to some other world news. According to CNN, which is not a real trusted news source, but there's other news sources that carry the similar article that talk about Kenya's Supreme Court orders a rerun of disputed presidential election. So in Nairobi, Supreme Court has invalidated the result of last month's contentious presidential election and has ordered a new vote, the first time in Africa that a court has nullified the vote of a sitting leader. The court upheld the petition filed by the opposition candidate who claimed the re-election of the president, that it was fraudulent. And they say that the presidential election was not conducted in accordance with the Constitution, endearing the declared results invalid, nullified, and void, the Chief Justice of Kenya said. He's also ordering fresh elections within 60 days. So it's just interesting to see the turn of events there in Africa. Kenya's a key country, major world player. But you see the corruption no matter what country you go to in politics. And just interesting news item. And then moving on down to Australia, there's a couple interesting articles that came out of here. And I'm not quite sure if it's around the world, but I do know that this is something that has impacted Australia. According to Brett Bard, a growing movement of a renamed Father's Day, which today's Father's Day, a special person's day, to adopt a new term. So the early child activist wants Father's Day in Australia to be renamed a special person's day to be more inclusive to children in special communities who do not have fathers. Australian academic Red Ruby Scarlett, convener of the social justice early childhood activist group, told Today Tonight's host that scrapping Father's Day in favoritism of a non-specific special person's day was not political correctness, but about rights. Why are they calling this political correctness when in fact it's our rights, said Dr. Scarlett. She claims that the shifting of language around motives days makes school more inclusive to children from special communities, including single-parent families and same-sex parent families. Host Rosanna noted that the growing number of politically correct schools and kindergartens were adopting the move and asked the childhood activist what kind of feedback she was getting from parents and teachers. The activist dismissed the backlash from parents who support traditional days honoring mothers and fathers, saying there has never been a backlash from people in those special communities. It's people outside those particular contexts whose object the special person's day. This is not the first time the educators in Australia have attempted to wipe celebrations honoring traditional families or parent figures. There's also not only dealing with this, but how they wanted to eliminate Australia Day, kind of like our Independence Day in the U.S. They wanted to change the name of that to Invasion Day. So it's just crazy how society is going, not only here in Australia, but in America and other countries around the world. They want to eliminate traditional values. They want to eliminate the issue of marriage between a man and a woman. They want to ruin and destroy and pull down the monuments that have been put up there for decades and years, because now, for some interesting reason or weird reason, why people just don't want to have this anymore. But if it was never a problem, a year ago, 2 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago. But now, within the last several months, it's now becoming a huge issue. Another interesting article that was talking about Wear It Purple Day, where it's indisputable politicization of our children. And in this article was from New South Wales Teacher Federation is imploring schools to embrace activist event and leading up to the plebiscite on the change of definition of marriage. This is going to be a new big vote that's going to happen here in the next several weeks. But she states, Wear It Purple Day embraces and celebrates sexuality, sex, and gender diversity. But school children, some as young as 12, do they really need to celebrate sexuality, sex, and gender at school? Many of these Wear It Purple Days involve guest speakers who toot the marriage quality horn. Wear It Purple Day is not an anti-bully program. It is another opportunity for safe schools program to promote their ideology. Stand Out, a resource created by Minus 18 and Safe Schools, encourages students to commit to school activism by organizing Wear It Purple Days and to fundraise for this organization. There was a comment by one of the individuals to remind principals that our schools are not indoctrination hubs, which they are. Schools are a place of learning, not celebrating sexuality, and that's a great reminder. But under Safe Schools, this is what it's all about. It's about indoctrination. It's about promoting sexual immorality. Speaking of sexual immorality, there was an interesting article that came out of the Daily Caller that talked about bisexual up 400%, more prevalent in Harvard freshmen than general population. The article talks about how their bisexuals are up at least 400% more prevalent in Harvard than incoming class of freshmen that there are in the general population, while approximately 1.8% of the general population in the U.S. identifies as bisexual. 7.9% of Harvard's class of 2021 says that they are bisexual. So you can see how far this liberal institution has come and how far the indoctrination within the American public school system has come as well, pushing this immoral ideology. And there's so many other stories like it that we're seeing an increase in the perversion that's going on these days. So this is just a taste, a little briefing of what's happening on some of the moral issues, some of the global issues around the world. The main thing is you're seeing Matthew 24, some of the signs of the times taking place, getting closer and closer to the rapture of the church. We're seeing more of 2 Timothy chapter 3, the living in perilous times, and it talks a lot of the character, the social issues at this time that we're seeing, that we're living in these perilous times, these end times. And so from a biblical perspective, exciting to see what's happening. On another perspective, it's sad to see so many lives being destroyed through the government, through the policies, through the safe school program that's here in Australia. And I know there's similar programs like that in the U.S. and other parts of the world, pushing an ideology, pushing indoctrination upon kids to embrace homosexuality, namely, but it's that whole LGBTQ2 and the rest of the alphabet goes on, that agenda. And it's just destroying people, that they're living in confusion. And just because a group of people or a country might pass a law to say that it's okay to have same-sex marriage, it doesn't mean that God has changed his mind. And he hasn't changed his mind. It's always between a man and a woman, and that's always foundational for a marriage and for a family. And so, again, there's going to be a lot more stories like this coming up. And so we need to be men and women of prayer. We need to be speaking the truth in love. And we need to not compromise in our life and our walk with the Lord and our witness as well. And that concludes today's update.